Across the expansive and intricate tapestry of ancient human chronicles, few narratives resonate with the same profound intensity and structural magnificence as the restoration of a devastated city. Good evening, and welcome to this extensive and meticulous exploration of visionary leadership, unwavering faith, and the literal stones that forged an enduring legacy for future generations. We currently stand at the threshold of a monumental and transformative journey that originated within the opulent heart of the Persian Empire and eventually reached its climax in Jerusalem. Let us cast our minds back to the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, where one man's grief transformed into an unstoppable force for architectural and spiritual renewal. When the distressing reports concerning Jerusalem's absolute desolation reached Susa, the staggering weight of 1,000 years of heritage appeared to collapse upon the weary shoulders of the king's cupbearer. He spent numerous days in profound mourning, fasting, and petitioning before the Almighty of Heaven, earnestly seeking a viable method to mend the fractured spirit of his displaced people. These ruins were not merely inanimate stones and charred timber, but rather a physical manifestation of a nation's extreme vulnerability and the tragic loss of its sacred identity. Nehemiah's inner being was stirred with a divine and restless discontent that would soon challenge the very foundations of the vast empire he served with such impeccable diligence. He fundamentally understood that a settlement without protective walls was a civilization without a soul, perpetually vulnerable to every opportunistic predator that roamed the surrounding untamed wilderness. The silence of the broken streets cried out for a champion who could look past the charcoal and see the potential for a renewed and fortified sanctuary. This calling was not born of political ambition, but of a deep ancestral connection to the hallowed ground where his forefathers lay in their silent, eternal rest. The shadows of the former glory haunted the rubble, whispering of a time when the city was the crown jewel of the Judean highlands. To rebuild was to reclaim a heritage that had been nearly extinguished by the ravages of time and conflict. He envisioned a future where the gates would once again swing open to welcome the faithful back to their spiritual center. This vision was the only light that pierced the gloom of his current reality. Every prayer he whispered was a brick in the spiritual wall he was already constructing within his mind. The path forward was fraught with danger, yet his commitment remained as solid as the foundations he hoped to uncover. Every stone had a story of resilience to tell. This sacred mission was destined to alter the course of Jewish history forever. Standing before the formidable King Artaxerxes, Nehemiah discovered unexpected favor through a rare courage that had been carefully forged in the relentless fires of persistent prayer and strategic foresight. The observant monarch noticed the uncharacteristic sadness etched upon his servant's countenance, representing a potentially dangerous vulnerability in a court where only visible joy was typically permitted. With a heart hammering against his ribs like a panicked and trapped avian creature, Nehemiah dared to request official permission to reconstruct the city of his ancestors' ancient graves. To his immense astonishment, the king graciously granted his ambitious petition and even provided the necessary royal letters of safe passage and high-quality timber from the royal forests. This pivotal moment signaled the transition from a solitary private prayer to a fully sanctioned mission of immense national importance and lasting historical consequence for the people. The long and arduous road to the Judean hills was now paved with official royal decrees, but the actual physical labor would require an entirely different level of strength. Nehemiah carried the weight of a royal mandate, but his true authority resided in the unseen purpose that directed his every step toward the horizon of his homeland. He departed the luxury of the palace with a singular focus that would soon transform the physical and spiritual landscape of his heritage. Every scroll and signature obtained in that grand hall was a vital component in the complex logistical puzzle he was preparing to solve. The king's resources were vast, but the human spirit required for such a task was something no treasury could ever provide. Nehemiah left the presence of royalty knowing that the true king was already making a way through the wilderness. His departure from Susa was not just an exit, but a courageous entry into a new chapter of biblical history. The decree was sealed with royal authority and divine favor. His journey was now officially sanctioned by the highest power in the known world. The journey from the lush gardens of Susa to the rugged terrain of Judah was a grueling trek through some of the most challenging environments known to the ancient world. Day after day, the small party moved across shifting sands and through narrow mountain passes where the threat of nomadic raiders was a constant concern for everyone. Nehemiah utilized this time for deep contemplation and the further refinement of the complex logistical plans he had been developing. Every mile traveled was a step toward a destiny that felt remarkably focused within the mind of this singular and determined Jewish leader. The heat of the day was balanced by the freezing chill of the desert nights, mirroring his internal conflict between Persian comfort and Judean duty. Water sources were scarce, requiring the travelers to maintain a disciplined pace while preserving their strength for the monumental task that awaited them. The sight of the distant Judean hills brought a mixture of relief and renewed urgency as the physical reality of his mission finally took shape. He watched the stars each night, seeking guidance from the same celestial bodies that had led his ancestors through their historical migrations. As the caravan crested the final ridge, the stark silhouette of the ruined city appeared like a ghostly reminder of his ultimate purpose. His heart pounded with a mixture of grief for what was lost and hope for what was to be gained. Every sunrise brought him closer to the ruins that were destined to become a fortress once again. Upon his quiet arrival in the dormant city, Nehemiah did not immediately announce his presence, but instead chose the absolute protective cover of the deep night. Under the ethereal silver glow of a brilliant full moon, he circumnavigated the broken and jagged perimeter, his horse carefully picking its way through ruins. He meticulously inspected the valley gate and the dung gate, witnessing with his own eyes the staggering scale of the devastation that lay before him. The oppressive silence of the night was broken only by the rhythmic breathing of his mount and the occasional shift of ancient limestone blocks. He was mentally calculating the immense cost, assessing the structural damage, and preparing the powerful words that would ignite a fierce fire. He understood with absolute clarity that before the first physical stone could be laid, the people had to truly believe that restoration was a genuine possibility. This solitary nocturnal vigil was the foundation upon which the entire Reconstruction project would be built. A moment of profound truth between a leader and ruins. The cold air carried the scent of dust and ash, a lingering reminder of the fires that had leveled these massive fortifications centuries before. He reached out to touch the cold, jagged stone, feeling the weight of the responsibility that now rested entirely upon his determined shoulders. As the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon, his plan was as firm and unyielding as the rock he intended. He saw not just the gaps in the wall, but the potential for a community to find its strength again through collective labor. Every gate he passed was a witness to his silent vow to restore the glory of his people's sacred and historical home. The subsequent call to action was met with an overwhelming and resounding response from the diverse families of Jerusalem who rose up with a unified and common purpose to rebuild. Nehemiah spoke not of personal glory, but of the collective dignity of a nation that had been left without a home and without a proper defense for too long. His words resonated through the narrow alleys and the open marketplaces, bridging the gap between the wealthy elite and the humble laborers who shared the same soil. Each family was assigned a specific section of the wall that was nearest to their own homes, creating a personal and powerful incentive for quality craftsmanship and speed. The skepticism that had once paralyzed the community began to evaporate, replaced by a contagious and vibrant energy that had not been seen in Jerusalem for many generations. Priests worked alongside merchants, and goldsmiths stood shoulder to shoulder with apothecaries, all contributing their unique skills to the singular goal of national security and spiritual restoration. This was the birth of a community transformed from a group of disconnected survivors into a focused and formidable workforce ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. They realized that their individual efforts were essential threads in the larger fabric of their nation's miraculous and timely recovery. The shared vision for a secure future began to outweigh the individual fears that had previously kept them in a state of stagnant and hopeless resignation. Nehemiah watched as the first groups of volunteers began to clear the massive piles of charcoal and limestone rubble from the construction sites. Every person, from the youngest apprentice to the oldest elder, felt the weight of their contribution to this historic and sacred undertaking. Their collective hands were ready to transform the debris into a symbol of renewed hope and strength. The vision was no longer a solitary dream, but a shared mission for the entire nation. From the sheep gate to the fish gate, the sound of hammers striking stone and the rhythmic chants of the laborers filled the air. They worked with a trowel in one hand and a sharp weapon in the other, ever mindful of the hostile enemies who watched them. The Judean sun beat down with a relentless intensity, yet the workers refused to slow their pace as the wall began to rise steadily. Every single stone placed was a tangible testament to their collective resilience and a symbolic gesture of defiance toward those who predicted failure. The logistics were a masterpiece of organization, with Nehemiah personally overseeing the distribution of materials and the rotation of the guard shifts. Water carriers moved between the groups of workers, providing necessary hydration as the physical demands of the project pushed everyone to their endurance. Despite the exhaustion that threatened to overwhelm them, the visible progress of the fortifications provided a continuous source of motivation that fueled them. The wall was becoming more than just a physical barrier. It was a living monument to the power of a people united by vision. In the astonishing span of only 52 days, the seemingly impossible task was completed, and the walls of Jerusalem stood tall and magnificent again. The surrounding nations were filled with awe and dread, recognizing that this achievement was fueled by a power that far exceeded human effort. The massive gates were set firmly in place, the watchtowers were fully manned, and the city was secure for the first time in generations. A grand dedication ceremony filled the streets with music, singing, and the collective tears of a people who had successfully rediscovered their identity. They successfully rebuilt their national dignity and secured a bright future for their children within the sanctuary of their secure ancestral home. These stones, once scattered and charred in the dirt, were now part of a living and eternal testament to unity and faith. Every challenge was met with a renewed and more intense determination to finish the work until the very last stone was set. As we conclude this epic and transformative journey through the reconstruction of Jerusalem, we are reminded that no ruin is too great for a heart filled with purpose. The legacy of Nehemiah continues to resonate through the centuries, teaching us that true leadership is about building more than just physical structures for the people. May the enduring story of Nehemiah inspire you to look at your own personal ruins and see not just desolation, but the foundation for something truly extraordinary. Thank you.